Mid-side processing isn't real, but I'm going to show you how you could use this tactic to get your mixes to sound wider than they actually are. If this is your first time here, I'm Andrew Barr with Producing in the Box, where I teach you how to make incredible sounding music without analog gear, and I think you're better off without it. Now, for those of you that don't know what mid-side processing is, it's essentially the concept that there is a center and there is a side to your mixes. Now, this isn't real. We only have a left channel and a right channel. You have a left speaker and a right speaker, or a left driver and a right driver in your headphones. There is no middle. In the case of mixing live, where I actually have a center speaker or a mono sum speaker, I would actually use that mixing live, and then there would technically be a mid-side speaker arrangement. Or maybe if you're mixing in Dolby Atmos where you have a center speaker, that might be a different story. But in the case of just a stereo mix, there is no such thing as mid-side. Now, if it's the same sound in both speakers at the same time, it sounds like it's in the middle. It's an illusion, but it's a very useful one. Our brains are really good at knowing where things are, even though we have two ears. You can hear if something's above or below you or anywhere around in the room. And because of this awesome system we have in our brains, we're able to kind of hack it using mid-side processing. Another great way of thinking about this is mid-side is essentially right minus the left, and vice versa. So how would you use mid-side processing in a mix? Well, let's jump on into the DAW and I'll show you exactly how I would use mid-side processing in a mix. Before we get into that though, if you want to know how to get incredible sounding vocals anywhere in your house with the gear you already have, I have a great guide. It's completely free. Just scroll down right now and click the top link in the description. It's my ultimate guide to recording vocals at home. It's a really simple guide, but it shows you everything that you need to know to get release-ready vocals right inside your house. Even if you have no acoustic treatment or a vocal booth, and even if you have no idea what you're doing, but you have a microphone and a laptop. Even if you don't have that, I even have recommendations for microphones on any budget inside of this guide. So if that's something you're interested in, scroll down right now, click the top link in the description, and you can download that absolutely free. So now let's jump on into the DAW and I'll show you exactly how to use mid-side processing in your mix. So here I have a mix that sounds like this. Now this is sounding pretty awesome already, but I'm going to show you how you can use some mid-side processing, specifically mid-side EQ, to actually get this mix to sound a bit wider and a bit more focused on the low end. Now, mid-side EQ follows the same rules as normal EQ. You want to cut before you boost most of the time, and a lot of plugins have this feature. I know Infinity EQ from Slate Digital has this. I know in Studio One, you can make any plugin mid-side mode by using their splitter channel. It's really cool. But for this example, I'm going to show you how to do this in Infinity EQ from Slate Digital. So down here, we have a solo mid and a solo side mode, and we have the output balance where you can drag it from one side to another and kind of blend the mids and the sides. And then we can create any sort of frequency boost or cut in here, and then we can turn this to mid-side mode. So that way I can have one controlling the mids and I can have another one controlling the sides. Super handy. But I want to show you how a mix sounds with just the mids and just the sides first. So let's play this mix back, and then I will solo the mids and then solo the sides. So let's solo the mids first. This is everything right in the middle. Now let's solo the sides. And this is everything all on the sides. So essentially, the right speaker minus the left speaker and vice versa. So one thing I really like to do with mid-side EQ is I actually like to roll the low end off on the sides. So we'll put a high pass filter on and we'll cut the low end just on the sides. And then I'll probably roll this up to around 50-ish hertz to start with. What this is going to do is going to focus all the low end right towards the center. And it is not summing the low end to the center. This is actually eliminating the side content of the low end and only keeping the center content of that bass intact. Now, why would you do this instead of just summing it down to mono? Well, because if there is side content, summing low end down to mono can actually cause some phasing issues sometimes. That's why we actually like to create a safe bass. But if you have a lot of low end stereo content, like in a Reese bass or other synth basses, this is a really nice trick to get everything off the sides if it's going to cause any sort of phasing issues. Now, I would usually not put this on the entirety of the mix. I would actually throw this low cut on specific things like synth basses, Reese basses, other stuff like that. But for this video, I'm going to show you how you could do it right on your master bus. And so all I'm doing is I'm just allowing it to focus the low end right towards the middle. So I'm just eliminating the side content. I'm not summing it to the middle. I'm eliminating the side content. Now let's listen to what that sounds like. Actually, right around 80 hertz sounds really good for that. So we'll just leave it there. And another thing I like to do is I like to actually boost the highs a little bit to make my sides sound a little bit more sparkly than they currently are. So I can take a high shelf here and just kind of create a high shelf starting around, I don't know, let's say 4K, the dangerous 4K. And I'm going to make quite the dramatic boost. A 2 dB or almost 3 dB boost is quite exaggerative for a master, but I'm trying to show you the concept of it here. And then I'm going to turn this to side mode. So I am just boosting the sides. Now I'm going to bypass the plugin. Now let's turn it back on. Make sure you're wearing headphones for this so you can actually really hear how this sounds. This sounds really good, actually. I'm surprised. It does sound a little bit brittle, but that's quite the boost there on the sides. Another thing I like to do is I like to find any sort of like honky sound or something like that and cut that out of a mix. But the problem is if I just use a normal EQ and just cut that, it cuts the entirety of the mix at that frequency, and that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. So let's first try to locate where that honk sound is coming from. And it seems to be coming right from there around 509 hertz. Now we can turn this to mid mode. So now I can actually cut that specific part of that song out just in the mids and still leave the side content where it is. So we'll grab this and slide it down here. Oh, wow. Notice how it cleaned up the center of that, but I still have that vocal being pushed out into the sides. Probably a lot of that reverb is getting caught up in that. So let's bypass and then turn the plugin back on again. Turn it back on. This is such a handy plugin to use on just about anything if you're very careful with it. But if you want to know plugins that you should stop using immediately, click this video right here. In that video, I show you what plugins you should stop using immediately and how to get a better result without using plugins at all. So if you want to know more about that, click that video right there. And now, as always, go create.